Hello and welcome to Beyond the Pages, a Blackstone Library podcast. I'm your host, Rich Pfeiffer. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the history, architecture, and funding for the Blackstone. Today, our guest is Katie McNichol, the director of the Blackstone Library. Welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So I have to say, I drive by the library a lot. I've been in here quite a few times. I'm always impressed by the building. It's just this very awesome, amazing, looks like it's been built to last 1,000 years. Almost looks like a courthouse or a town hall. I was wondering if maybe you could tell me a little bit about James Blackstone, who the library is named after, and a little about when it was built, how much it cost, things like that.
Oh, yeah. So you are not the only one who thinks that it looks like a town hall. We get a lot of people who come in and they ask us, what was this before a library? Was it the town hall? Was it a courthouse? And they're surprised to find out that, no, it's always been a library. It was built in 1893 is when construction started. It took about 3 years, so they opened to the public in 1896. The library was built in honor of James Blackstone. James was from Branford. He was a local farmer, politician here. He was a captain in the Connecticut militia. He patrolled the waters of the Long Island Sound during the War of 1812. He had 6 kids, and one of them was this man named Timothy Blackstone. They must have had a fantastic relationship, because Timothy was the one who actually gave the town money to found the library in the honor of his father. So Timothy was born here in Branford. He moved out to Chicago and started working for a railroad, worked his way up, and became president of Chicago and Alton Railroad. And so in the 1890s, that's towards the end of the Gilded Age, the railroad barons were going crazy with money. And so Branford was really interested in getting a library. They hadn't had one here before. They tried a couple times to get one started and just didn't have the funding for it. So they scouted around and identified this guy, Timothy Blackstone. He had some money, maybe he'd be interested in helping fund this building. So they approached him. After some back and forth, he agreed to pay for the whole thing. And so he stipulated that he would pay for it as long as they named it for his father. His father had recently died at that point, and this was just a really lasting memorial to him. So Timothy gave the town of Branford $300,000 to build this library. He gave the town an additional endowment of $300,000 to keep it going in perpetuity. And then he also donated 5,000 books, which was one book for every person who lived in Branford at the time. So there were about 5,000 year-round residents there. Today we have 28,000, so we've grown a lot. But this library really was built to last. We're at 128 years old now, and the building is made of Tennessee marble on the outside. We've got Tennessee marble on the inside, and it really has lasted through the years. Its beauty, it is definitely an icon in Branford and this architectural gem that really catches people's eyes.
Yeah, that's awesome that we benefit from the forward thinking of the Blackstone family. And that was a lot of money back then.
One neat little tidbit is that in Chicago, about 8 years after this library was built, Timothy's family gave the town of Chicago money to build a library in Timothy's name. So there is today the Timothy Beach Blackstone branch of the Chicago library system. It was the first library in the Chicago system, and they used the same architect as here. So the building looks almost exactly the same as this, but it has an urban footprint, so it's about a quarter of the size. But it's got the dome, it's got the columns in the front, little iron details, and it's also a beautiful building.
I wanted to, since we're touching on the architecture and stuff, I wanted to maybe do a brief virtual tour of the library. So if we step through these grand front doors, past the columns, the marble columns, and into this rotunda area, which is really beautiful. And I think it's 50 feet up to the top.
From the floor to the highest point of the dome is 50 feet. And as we enter through those first doors in the front, the bronze doors, those are 2,000 pounds. And yeah, they are well oiled. We open them up every morning, we close them up at night. And if you look closely, they have some neat little details on them that are pretty whimsical and evoke this idea of strength and knowledge. They're beautiful doors just in themselves.
And then when you walk through the doors into the rotunda, and if you look straight up, there's all of these beautiful paintings that are around the top of the rotunda. And what are those?
When you walk through those doors, you walk past the marble columns and you look up, you see this beautiful dome. It's got these 8 panels, and they're these beautiful murals designed by Oliver Dennett Grover, who was a well-known Chicago painter at the time. And they depict the evolution of bookmaking. There's the gathering of the papyrus, showing people picking these plants to then be made into books in Egypt, and it goes all the way through the years up to a book bindery in 1895. They've got this gold gilding around the edges. The detail of the decoration is really beautiful. And then below the domed panels, there are these medallion portraits, and those are New England authors who were famous at the time. So there's Harriet Beecher Stowe. She's the only woman who's up there. Oliver Wendell Holmes, Nathaniel Hawthorne, William Cullen Bryant, and there's a few others. And you can kind of stand there and spin in this slow circle and get this feeling of just the importance of books and the printed word that serves to inspire people, I think, and make them feel the sense of importance of these ideas.
And then just a quick note, if you want to get a closer look, you could go up to the second floor and you could see right out and up into those murals. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a little walkway around the second floor of the rotunda. You get nice up and close with those portraits. And while you're there, we have started this artist circle gallery. So every couple months we feature a different local artist, and so they're able to display whatever their media is. We hang them up and you can walk around and enjoy their works.
Yeah, it's a great way to display the local artists, have them give some recognition for their work. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really neat. It brings some color to the walls up there. And one fun thing that we did, we didn't have an artist lined up a couple months ago, and so a staff member suggested, hey, why don't we do a staff art show? And so we invited any of the staff members who wanted to display their work there. And so for a couple months, we had paintings, we had photographs, we had these beautiful embroidered pieces, and it was a really neat way for staff to showcase their talents. It was a nice way to see some of the hidden talents that we didn't know these staff had.
So then if you move forward through the main floor of the library and go to the back, there's this really great auditorium.
Yes, yep, the auditorium, that has been this cultural center since the library first opened. When they built the library, they really wanted to make it this kind of grand cultural center for ideas and community, and the auditorium really serves that purpose well. When the library first opened, they had these wooden floors and bench seating. Today we have more flexible chairs and flexible table and chair setups, but the bones of the auditorium remain the same, where it has this beautiful arched dome ceiling that serves a really great acoustical purpose. The stage at the back of the auditorium is a raked stage, so the back of it is actually physically higher than the front. And those kinds of stages led to the term downstage, because you were literally going down.
Yeah, that's
when you go
cool.
up the stage. Yeah. Overlooking the stage is this balcony. And when the library was in its early days, that was used for extra overflow seating. Today, we don't have seats up there. We have converted it into a storage area almost. In this building, we really try to maximize usable public space. Storage is hard to find here. But one thing we're looking at doing is converting that storage space into more usable area and making it meeting space. So we have secured a state library construction grant for 50% of this project to install a window wall, so it would enclose and make that area soundproof, And then we would further subdivide it with glass walls to create 2 small meeting rooms, which are in supremely high demand here at the library. So that's a project we're really excited about. In order to get this grant, we had to ensure we were respecting the original intent and honor the style. So that's where everything is glass, where it can be. And it's a stipulation of the state, but it's also really important to us that we are stewards of this beautiful building and keep up with that intent of the original designers and the feel of grandeur that it's always had.
So one other thing about the auditorium, I know from a personal experience that you have some great events. You have some great speakers that come in. Definitely to check the calendar on the library website. Recently, I went in and I saw a presentation from a woman who was talking about edible wild plants. And I thought that was pretty neat.
Our auditorium is our main program spot. So whether it's story times for babies or programs for teens, movies, lectures, concerts for all ages, it all happens in the auditorium. So it's always hopping. So our adult programs are planned by a committee. So we have a committee of staff and a couple of Friends members who help us go through all of the proposals that we get, to review our strategic plan, to make sure that the programs we're offering really align with community interests and needs. And so we come up with programs on a quarterly basis. Most of our programming is actually funded by the Friends of the Blackstone Library. So they're a separate organization. They work extremely hard to raise a lot of money that comes to the library, and we use that for a wide variety of services, programs, things. But one really important piece of it is this programming piece. So the Friends fund adult programs, teen programs, kids programs, and we're really grateful to them. One really well-attended event was an evening with Edgar Allan Poe. So we had this living history event where this performer comes in and he's dressed as Edgar Allan Poe and he talks about his life as himself, and then he does readings of Poe's works. And it's just this wonderful combination of theater and history and just literature. So people really enjoyed that event. So we really try to put on a wide variety of programs to reach a wide variety of interests. We try to offer things on one-off basis as classes so you can progress your skills. And these were all things that we heard from the community as their interests, their needs, and so that's us trying to meet those needs.
You mentioned the Friends of the Blackstone, and since you brought it up, I wanted to talk a little about the funding for the library. So can you explain? Some of it comes from the town, but some of it comes from the Friends?
Yes. So we are an association library, and there are other association libraries in Connecticut, but it's not what you would think of as how the regular funding usually is. Our funding was established initially through an endowment from Timothy Blackstone. Over the years, as the stocks went up and down, to really ensure that this library was a strong entity going forward, in the past they worked it out with the town so that the town would fund part of the operating budget each year. And then the library would fundraise the rest. So today, we receive about 89% of our annual operating budget as a grant from the town. And then we still have our endowment, but we only pull a small percentage of that to ensure that the endowment remains strong going into the future. And then we have fundraising events to meet that remaining part of the budget. We have a really strong base of support in this town. People really feel ownership in the library. They care about this library, and they show it in a lot of different ways. One of those ways is through event attendance or responding to our appeals. And then the Friends, on top of that, give us a very generous monthly gift and then a year-end gift if they have anything left over. So we don't include them in our official operating budget, but then they are such a significant part of what we can offer to the town. We really try to show our appreciation as much as possible and show our love for them as much as possible, because I like to say that with our operating budget from the town and what we fundraise, it's a really special cake, but then the friends make this amazing icing and everything on top of it. And we wouldn't be what we are without the town and without the friends and without the community really showing all their support.
That's great. That's great. So hopping back just to finish up on the architecture. So the auditorium, it's actually available for rental, right? Do some people do weddings here?
Yep. So part of our fundraising efforts include private rentals. We've had people have weddings here, have receptions, rehearsal dinners, very special birthday parties. So you can rent the auditorium or our new terrace or together, or you can rent the rotunda and reading room area, which is beautiful, or you can rent the whole space. So depending on the size of the party, what you're looking to have happen there. And we rent that out after the library's closed. So usually it's a Friday or Saturday evening. And it really makes for some special memories. The library is so beautiful inside, there's not a lot of party decoration that's needed. And I tell people who are thinking about getting married here that we're not going anywhere, so you can get married here today and then come back and renew your vows in 30 years, and it'll still probably look the same.
That's a great selling point. I really like that. Yeah, that's awesome. And for anybody who hasn't been to the library, I encourage you even to just walk around. I've been here so many times, but I still find little features that I hadn't seen before. It's really interesting. And then I wanted to say one last thing about the architecture. So you offer tours on a periodic basis, right? If people want to come and hear more about the architectural features and the history of the library, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I lead a tour on the second Saturday of each month. Check the calendar. If you're thinking about coming, make sure it's still happening. It's generally at 10 a.m. And we go through the history of the building. We walk through all of the rooms, talk about how the space is used today, how it used to be used. And you get little stories of different things that have happened over the years. I've had people at the end of the tour say to me that they thought I was just going to show them where the fiction books were, but it's so much more than that. We have a good time, and I think it really gives people, again, that sense of ownership. They see what we as staff see. We go into the back rooms, and it gives people this little extra glimpse into what the Blackstone Library is.
So yeah, I encourage people to check out on the website, the calendar, to come and take a tour with Katie.
Come on down.
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you if you could tell our listeners where is the library located and the website for more information.
Yeah, so the library is at 758 Main Street. We have a website. It's blackstonelibrary.org. We're on Facebook. It's at Blackstone Library. And we are on Instagram. It's at Blackstone_library. And I know we have a TikTok account. We have a couple of staff members who are really skilled at TikTok. I don't have the app myself, but the reels always get shared over to Facebook and Instagram, and they really are talented with the videos that they put up there.
That's awesome. So with that, I want to thank you, Katie McNichol, Director of the Blackstone Library, for joining us on our first episode of the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Rich. This has been really fun.
So this has been Beyond the Pages, a Blackstone Library podcast. I'm your host, Rich Pfeiffer, saying to you, please come visit the library. Thank you.